I have a gym membership and a writing habit, which I've used to stay sane since my mother died 4 years ago. Our relationship was complicated and has taken pages of writing and hours on the treadmill to even begin to understand. My mother was the dragon lady of publishing. She published Stephen King, Toni Morrison, and Joyce Carol Oates. She was tough, and her work style extended to her parenting. I loved and hated her in equal measure. Late one Wednesday night, I went to the YMCA pool, where I thought I could glide through the water and relieve some stress. The pool was packed, and I entered the slow lane. As someone who's conscientious to a fault, I make sure to keep a respectful distance from the other swimmers. There was a woman who was standing 2 feet from the edge talking to someone. I didn't know what to do. Should I turn back now or swim around her? I swam around her and grazed the lane divider. She yelled, "You can't just swim wherever you feel like. What do you think this is, your private pool?" I said, with teeth clenched, "I'm going to another lane." Then I sloshed out of the pool and almost fell on the floor. I raged in a lane far from this lady and exhaled hard every time I dipped underwater. She didn't know me. I was trying to stay out of her way. She was the one standing around talking and blocking the lane. As I swam lap after lap, which usually calms me, I found myself shaking with fury. I didn't understand why I was so upset by her comment. She was just a mean lady who probably had a miserable life. And then I realized her behavior reminded me of my mother. My mother falsely accused me all the time. There was that day she thought I smudged my bedroom wall on purpose with my shoe. And when I insisted I hadn't, she said, "The lady doth protest too much." And the time she thought I was drinking because I came home from a party with a headache. Or the time she thought I was having sex because my friend David kept calling. This was all before I turned 12. She didn't see me for who I was, a good girl constantly trying to please her. I spent years being misunderstood. This went deep. Pool lady wasn't just mean, she was my mother. I had to talk to this lady. I had to resolve years of not being seen. She was still swimming when I left the pool, so I figured I'd see her in the locker room. As I showered, I kept the curtain open like a nude stalker, ready to pounce. While I was changing, I saw her in the next row, short, wiry, mean-looking. I felt lightheaded with adrenaline as I dressed and readied myself. I gathered my things and walked up to her, shaking. I said, "You know, there are nicer ways to speak to people than the way you spoke to me. Simple, mature, to the point." She narrowed her eyes. She said, "I've never seen you before in my life." So she was playing games. Not only was she rude, she wasn't going to own up to what she'd said. I said, "Really? You were wearing a dark blue swim cap in the pool, right?" "Right?" As I said it, I wasn't too sure. She said, "I don't swim. I've never even used the pool here. I just came from yoga. Her features softened. Oh God, this was a nice woman who just stretched and breathed her way to peace. I'm so sorry, I said, and I had the impulse to hug her. I'm so sorry. It's just that this woman was so mean. She was so mean, and you kind of look like her. She stared at me hard. I felt tears build, a culmination of the pool ladies yelling and this compassionless woman and my latent grief and my entire childhood. As I cooled off at the water fountain, I saw a yoga woman look at her friend with a wide-eyed look that conveyed, "What a nutcase." No, I wanted to tell her, "You practice yoga? Have you no empathy?" I thought of explaining in my defense that I wasn't usually like this, that pool lady's comment had triggered something. But she would have just thought I was nuts and that I could really benefit from some yoga and psychotherapy 3 times a week. And maybe she'd be right. The strangest part is, I had this urge to tell the whole story to my mother. She would have laughed her startled, childlike laugh when she heard about the mix-up and told me that woman, both those women, were jerks, and how awful that I had to encounter them. Then she would have invited me over for dinner. Though she could be harsh, my mom's reassuring, nurturing side came out often, especially when I was distraught. She had coached me through conflicts with tyrannical bosses, disparaging teachers, and inflexible friends. She would have given me her own lung if I needed it. In the steam room one night, after a trip to the elliptical, I thought how nice it would be to swim again, but I was afraid to see pool lady. And as soon as the thought surfaced, I heard my mother saying, as if she were in the same room, "That lady in the pool was a bitch. You're going to let that stop you from swimming?" My mother, the same woman who could bring me to tears at the drop of a comment, had also taught me not to let people stand in the way of what I wanted. And just then, I realized it had been easier to be angry with her than to accept that I'll never, ever get to speak to her again, even to tell her off. Thank you.